Hey there, math fans, and welcome to the final lesson for Test 3. Grab your swords and let's get going. Today we're going to review how to find perimeter, talk about factors, and identify types of angles. And we will start by reviewing perimeter. So hopefully this is not new to you, but what is perimeter? Perimeter is the distance around a two-dimensional shape. And how do we find perimeter? We measure each side and we find the sum of all sides. So perimeter is the distance around a two-dimensional shape. So for example, the perimeter of this rectangle would be 7 plus 7 plus 3 plus 3 is 20. You have to add up all the sides. Here we have a regular pentagon. Regular means that all the sides are the same. So that rectangle is not regular, but the pentagon is because all the sides are the same. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, 3 times 5 is 15. Don't need to worry about circles. All you really need to worry about this here are the squares and rectangles and quadrilaterals, all that. We're just looking at the flat shapes. Okay, so you just need to worry about these guys. So just to remind you about regular, when you hear that a shape is regular, it means that all the sides are the same. So a square, this is a regular shape. All the sides, and we'll learn later all the angles as well, are exactly the same. This is not a regular shape, because some of the sides are different, even though all the angles are the same. Okay, so that's the difference between regular and not regular. If your shape is regular, then if you know what one side is, you know what all the sides are. If your shape is not regular, you're going to have to find out more sides. And that's it for perimeter, because I hope this is something that you've been learning every year since grade 2. So let's move on to something that might be a little newer, and that's listing the factors of a number. So what is a factor? Factors are numbers you can multiply together to get another number. So 2 and 3 are factors of 6 because 2 times 3 is 6. A number can have many factors. So for example, here it says, what are the factors of 12? Well, we know 3 and 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Also 2 times 6 is 12, so 2 and 6 are also factors of 12, and 1 and 12, so 1 and 12. So the factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Also the negative ones, but don't worry about that right now. So when we're talking about factors, we're talking about numbers that multiply to give you a number. One of the easiest ways for us to find factors of a number is to make a rainbow. So if I asked you to find all the numbers of 64, what you're going to do is start with 1 and the number itself as the outside edges of the rainbow. So there's 1 and 64. They're going to be my outside numbers of the rainbow. The next thing I'm going to do is see if I can divide the number by 2. So can 64 be divided by 2? If so, I'm going to add those factors to the rainbow. I actually know that 64 divided by 2 is 32, but if I didn't, I could grab a calculator and check. If I get a whole number, 64 divided by 2 is 32, then it is a factor. If I get a decimal, then it's not a factor. So I'm going to add 2 and 32 to my rainbow. So there's 2 and 32. Next I'm going to go, can I do 64 divided by 3? 64 divided by 3 gives me 21 with a remainder of 1, or 21 decimal something. So 3 is not a factor of 64, which means I get to leave it out of my rainbow. I'm going to go on and see if 4 is a factor of 64. And it is. If I go 64 divided by 4, I'm going to get 4 and 16. So those are my next factors to add in. So next I'm going to go on to 5, and I know 5 is not going to be a factor of 64, because obviously if I count by 5s, the number has to end in 5 and 0, so 5 is not going to work. 6 is also not going to work, and I know that because 6 divided by 6 is 1, and then 4 can't be divided by 6. 7 will not work, because 7 times 9 is 63, and that brings me to 8, and I know that 8 times 8 is 64. And then there's nothing in between 8 and 8, which means I've come to the end of my factors. So if you ask me what are the factors of 64, I would say they are 1, 2, 4, and we always list them in order. 8, which I only have to write down once, 16, 32, and 64. These are the factors of 64, which is a fancy way of saying these are all the numbers that you can write down that you can multiply that will give you 64. So pause the video here and see if you can find the factors of 40. And when you come back, I'll have an answer for you. So I started with 1 and 40 as the outside parts of my rainbow. Then I went 40 divided by 2, and that works. That gives me 2 and 20, so I'll add them to my rainbow. 3, 40 cannot be divided by 3, so I'm going to skip that one, but it can be divided by 4. I can do 4 and 10, so that goes into the rainbow. I just like to use the right colors. And then 5 works. 5 and 8 gives me 40. 6, 40 can't be divided by 6, it can't be divided by 7, and that brings me back to 8, which is already right here. So I'm done. The factors of 40 are 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 10, 20, and 40. And finally, we're going to look at some angle types by looking at a study jam together. Before we do that, there's something I'd like you to take very careful note of. This is an angle. This is an angel. Angle is spelled A-N-G-L-E. Angel is spelled A-N-G-E-L. Please do not give me math homework that talks about angels, because although angels are lovely and very important, they have nothing to do with math. And let's move on to the study jam.
For a math project, Sam took photographs of a bunch of angles that he found around town. Right angles, acute angles, obtuse angles, and straight angles. But it's always tough to remember which is which. Let's review angles together step by step. For the first portrait, the acute angle. An acute angle is any angle that measures more than 0 and less than 90 degrees. I know it's silly, but an easy way to remember it is to say, an acute angle is so small, it's cute. Next step, the right angle. A right angle is exactly 90 degrees. Whenever you see that small square inside the vertex, it's a right angle. It can look like a capital L.
And it can go on the other side too. This is also a right angle on this side.
Now, let's look at an obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is actually a right angle plus an acute angle. So an obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. Finally, we come to the mysterious straight angle. A straight angle is exactly 180 degrees. It's the combination of two right angles. This angle definitely walks the straight and narrow. Exactly 180 degrees. Remember, an acute angle is smaller than 90 degrees. A right angle is exactly 90 degrees. An obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees. A straight angle is a line that measures exactly 180 degrees. Angles aren't so bad after all. What do you think? Think you've covered all the angles? Well, keep your eye on the vertex. That's the point you made by the two lines of the angle. When you measure an angle, you do it inside the vertex. And if it's a right angle, you should always mark the inside of the vertex with a square symbol.
And that's it for today. So we're just going to do the review. Number 1 is identify these words. A is vertices. Vertices is the plural form of vertex. B is acute angle, and C is obtuse angle. Number 2, what is the perimeter of a regular pentagon, 5 sides, where one side has a length of 5 centimeters? And number 3 asks you to fill in the factors missing from this rainbow. So that's it. Get that done, and we'll see you tomorrow.